Are you doing your compare and contrast essay and you don't know what to do? Don't freak out. It's really easy. So, first, find the thing that you're comparing. For example, Period 3 and Period 4 had highly respected elites, such as the daimyo in Japan and the Creoles in Latin America. And then you contrast. Just say, how are they the most different? The daimyo tried to build up support their dying economy in the midst of political breakdown and insecurity. And the Creoles exploited the peasants and slaves and saw themselves as superior in a time of economic success. Once you have this, you can make your thesis. See? Follow my fingers. All right, you can say, while Period 3 and 4 both had highly respected elites, the daimyo of Japan tried to build up and support their dying economy in the midst of political breakdown and insecurity, while the Creoles exploited the peasants and slaves and saw themselves as superior in a time of economic success. And that's it.
So when you take the DBQ, an important part and the main part of the essay is to analyze these documents and have to draw conclusions based on that. So what you need to know when you're analyzing these is treat it like sort of like a crime scene. Read through the documents, analyze it, and something that helps me and maybe would help you is to give yourself like an idea of what the document is about, like right off to the side, like a gist of the document, so that when you're going back to referencing it, you know what you're talking about and you don't have to read the whole thing. It's also important to point out a POV and show the bias of the author and why that's important, whether or not it changes the validity of his statement or just affects it. Also, you need to add a missing document, and it's important to remember that you can't be too specific because you need to create a document that perfectly fits in and gets you what you need. So, and also make sure that that document is correct. You can't have a Chinese peasant female writing this document. So now we're going to analyze some primary sources. Here we have a painting that you can see this main person is wearing red, so we know that signifies importance during this period. And also, if you look really closely, it looks like there are some people hiding behind that tree. So, this event's, they've arrived just from the sea, and the people, which are probably the natives, have started hiding because they probably haven't seen white people before. So, this main character is carrying a flag also, so that signifies his importance, and also the fact that he's pretty much in the middle. With this painting, there is a bias because it focuses on this person who I know to be Christopher Columbus, and because he's sort of the focal point, it idolizes him and also sort of pushes the Indians, who were another important part of this, off to the side, quite literally. The next document I have is a slave trade record, or a log, and so there's not much you can get from the names, but you can see that it has the gender and age, and the ages, the youngest I saw was 4, and the oldest was 33, and as you can see on the left, it's the males, and on the right, it's the females, so there's a whole lot more females than males, and that signifies the demographics of the people being transported across the ocean. A bias for this document is because it is just a log of the slaves that were exported, it's only going to tell you about what's listed on here, so you can't really get a full picture. And this is where you can add your missing document. Like something here that would have been nice is like maybe a journal from an explorer who was here and comments about the slaves or the numbers of slaves or the conditions.
Okay, so after 1450 we have a connection of the world, and before 1450 we did not have that connection. All we had was information about separate regions, individual regions, and it wasn't that much like of a connection between multiple regions. So now we have intertwined, and the world becomes intertwined, and soon nations begin influencing each other's development. And that's not a soccer ball, by the way. So we have our changes in Europe, of course. We have a shifting of ideas concerning nature and rule. So this is like, okay, does God really want this ruler to be here? Does God really approve of this? And we have the Enlightenment, the scientific revolution, and before this, came the Protestant Reformation. So as a result, we started having people actually rising up, thinking about things that they didn't thought about before, and you have loss of power in the church. So the church doesn't have that much power over what the government does with the people, and so there's more reason, more logic, and people start writing their own 95 theses and stuff. And at last, you have the most important thing in this time period, the Columbian Exchange. It was an exchange of ideas, disease, people and foods, and most importantly, people. And it was just like an exchange of things like from all over the world. So things that weren't in Europe ended up being in Europe. Things that weren't in America ended up being in America. And ultimately, it shaped our world how it is today.
During period 4, there were many ideas and events that pretty much happened and had a lasting impact on the period, and these continuities sort of shaped the way this period worked. One of these was the scientific revolution and how it spurred the creation of new navigational technology, which later became integral for like trade and exploration. Some of these inventions were the astrolabe, cartography, caravels, and star maps, and these just sort of aided the explorers in navigating the sea. Another one which sort of led from that is that trade and exploration were pretty characteristic of this period and pretty much happened throughout the entire course. Examples would be in the Ming Dynasty, when Zheng Shi started exploring and started Indian Ocean trade. And then other examples would be transatlantic slave trade and triangular trade and silver trade, which all happened across the Atlantic and connected the Americas to Europe, Africa, and Asia, and sort of just left the world connected.